What's going on, everybody? I'm Patrick Chapla, founder of POWLAX and creator of POWLAX Master Coach, and in this video I'm thrilled to share with you guys the line bump drill. The line bump drill is one of 3 drills that I created that really focuses in on teaching defensive players the components of a crease, slide, and recover defense. And defense in a whole is really just a lot of recovery. Like, if anybody gets beat, we have to slide, we have to recover. And I think that there aren't very many drills that really focus in on these exact principles and how we want to slide, how we want to recover, what all of the communication is within that. And if we're not really prepared to do all of this, we're never going to slide correctly in a game. So it's important that we really focus in on those things at some point within our practices. As we get into this drill, it's really important that players understand that these are the exact same principles that they're going to be using in a game. And as we build from line bump drill to triangle show drill to 5 on a die drill, we are essentially emulating the exact thing that players are going to see on the field. And as the players see this more and more and more within these drills, real competition drills and the actual game, the better we will become as a team defense. Before we get into how to actually run this drill, we're going to go over how we want to set the drill up at your practice. And depending on how many people you have at your practice will dictate how you want to set it up. For me, I usually have 40 to 80 players at a single practice, and if we're all trying to run this drill at the same time, we really can't run just one drill where everybody watches. So we like to set it up a lot like line drills, where we'll run, one here, one here, one here, and one here, so that we get as many players through and into the drill and actually participating and seeing what's going on as we can. Now, if you only have 12, 13 players, you may just want to run one so you can really focus in on exactly what that group is doing. Now, if you do have a lot of players, I really recommend setting up one station and then having the other groups grab their own cones and then build their own stations where they go, so you don't end up walking around trying to set up cones for 10 minutes during your practice. So how do we actually set up the drill? First thing we're going to do is we're going to take 3 cones and we're going to set them up in a line so that there's 10 to 15 yards between each cone. Then we're going to divide up our players into groups of 6, and 3 of those players are going to be dark and 3 are going to be light. Then we're going to have those players stand with 1 dark and 1 light player at each cone, and there will be 1 ball in each drill that will go on either side depending on which offensive player wants to start the drill. To start the drill, one of the offensive players will have the ball, and in this case it's 0-1 at the left cone. If you imagine a full 6-on-6, X3 will need to be spidered in just in case X2 has to slide. So X3 will spider in and get sideways in an athletic position, able to see the ball and 0-3 and play 0-2 if X2 slides. His call will be 2 as he is the second slide and is splitting 0-2 and 0-3. X2 will be sideways in an athletic stance, able to see his man and the ball and ready to slide. His call will be I go or hot. X1 will be on ball, broken down in an athletic stance and ready to defend a dodge. He will most likely be topside and forcing 0-1 down the side. So this is where we'll start and the context of the drill within an actual 6-on-6. To start the drill, 0-1 will throw the ball through to 0-3. As players learn the drill, X2 and X3 will not be trying to knock down passes. They will be really trying to get the hang of how we want to rotate into position and how we want to approach the ball, spider in, and make sure we're getting ball side leverage. As players get more experience with the drill, you'll want to allow your defensive players to try to knock down passes. As the ball is passed from 0-1 to 0-3, X3 will see approach and break down to defend 0-3's dodge and say ball. X2 will shed, regaining ball side leverage on 0-2, maintaining his sideways stance, being able to see the ball, cover 0-2 and be ready to slide, and call out I go or hot. X1 will spider in, call out 2 as he is now the second slide and is splitting 0-2 and 0-1. The ball will then be thrown back to 0-1 and all the roles will reverse again and we will be back where we started. Once your players have a good understanding of how to rotate into all of the positions and they really understand where to be, you can then move into the sliding portion of the drill. But I will caution you that if you want to really create good defensive habits, it's really good to stay in this for a little longer than you think you should and really critique players on how they are actually using techniques and how they are standing within each positions. Because as you go through this, you'll notice, especially because players they might get a little bored, is that a lot of times they won't see approach, or they won't be sideways off ball, or they won't be in an athletic stance with their stick up. And if you really want to drive home the good techniques with your players, stay here for a while and really focus on exactly what you want them to do, and then they will carry that into the actual drill and into the games. Now let's move into this sliding portion of the drill. The offense's job in this drill is to dodge to try to draw slides, but ultimately it is to try to stand with the ball over the middle cone, because this is where the defense is trying to protect, and that is where, if they get there in a game, they'll have a good shot opportunity. To start the slide and recovery portion, we're always going to start with a pass. As the ball is passed from 0-3 to 0-1, X1 will see approach, break down, say ball. X2 will regain ball side leverage on 0-2 and say I go or hot while getting sideways in an athletic position and preparing to slide. X3 will spider in and be able to play 0-2 if X2 slides and get sideways in an athletic stance and able to see the ball and 0-3, and he will say 2. 0-1 will now dodge toward the middle cone, looking to draw a slide and move the ball to get the ball over the center cone. X2 will slide and say find one or fire, letting X1 know to get off the ball and recover to find a new guy. As he slides, he will want to break down, get on the hands of 0-1, and body him up to keep him out of the middle. If X3 is not spidered in to play 0-2, 0-1 can feed him and win the drill. If X3 is spidered in covering 0-2, 0-1 will pass through to 0-3. As the ball is passed from 0-1 to 0-3, X1 should recover into the middle and bump X3 out to play 0-3, instead of running all the way through to 0-3. This way, everyone is running shorter distances and we can recover faster. As X1 is bumping X3 out, X3 will want to point X1 into 0-2. As 0-3 catches the ball, if X3 leaves early before X1 bumps him out, 0-3 can look to feed 0-2 inside. If there's nothing there, X3 will see approach and break down and say ball. X1 will get ball side leverage on 0-2 and prepare to slide, saying I go or hot, and X2 will spider in and say 2. How you want to run this drill from here is up to you. At first, I really like to make sure that our players are really understanding how the slide and recovery works. So we will run one dodge with one slide and recovery, and then we will kind of pause, make sure everyone's in the right place so that they really begin to understand exactly what we're doing. And then after that, when our players become a little more comfortable, then we can start adding things like secondary dodges with the second player, or having the offensive players move a little more, even having a backside exchange with the center cone player and the far side cone player. But so how you want to do it is really up to you, and how you progress your players is up to you. I really recommend that you do really focus on teaching the concepts first and then getting into the more competition style stuff. The main purpose of this drill, though, is to make sure that our defensive players are really gaining a good understanding of all the concepts that go into a crease slide defense, like communicating, sliding, recovering, bumping a guy through, pointing a guy to his recovery position. And the way we really want to do that is give our players as many chances as possible to see that actually happening. And one way to make sure that's happening within this drill is to use the rule of 3. Now, the rule of 3 is a way to use this drill so that every defensive player gets to be in every specific position on a dodge as they move through 3 reps of the drill. And so the way the rule of 3 works is that you start with 3 passes, you have a dodge, a slide, and a recovery, and then from that dodge you pass the ball 3 times. And so it'll go out to the far cone, back to the player who dodged, and then out to the far cone. And as we are doing this and running it over and over, the defensive players who are in the middle are going to go from being on ball and then recovering in to cover the center cone. Then they will be sliding to the next dodger, and then they will be a 2 on the third dodger. And so every player will move through and see every single part of our defensive strategy within these 3 reps of the drill. And so I really recommend using this rule of 3. Now let's go to some live video and we'll show you exactly what this drill looks like within a small clinic setting. In these videos, I was working with a few of the local 7th and 8th grade players, and most of the players who were at this individual clinic were either inexperienced players or they were offensive players who had never really been challenged to do these defensive techniques. So you'll notice that a lot of times the technique isn't really there, like as far as being sideways off ball in an athletic position. But so you will get the idea of exactly how this is going to run, and at some point I will get a video up of our high school players doing it, so you'll get to see the real speed and intensity that we actually run it at Grandview. The next thing I want to make sure you understand is that you don't have to run it in front of a goal like it is in the videos and like it was in the green screen examples. In this small clinic, I had a goalie who was there, and so I wanted to make sure he was actively doing something for him. So we were working on his arc, his check calls, his ball location calls, and so as the other players were working within this drill, he was working on his communication and his arc. The offensive players within these videos are going to be doing double moves when they actually catch the ball. That serves a couple of purposes. First, it lets the approaching players see a player who is moving. The second thing is it really keeps them by their cone, because for the most part, we don't want players going too far in and out as we're trying to teach our defense the principles of what they're supposed to do. It'll just kind of confuse things, and I really want to make sure that our defensive players are understanding the slide concepts, not chasing an offensive player all over the field. As we move through these videos, we're going to point out some of the positives and some of the negatives within each video, and the way we'll do that is we'll run the full clip. There's only going to be 2. We're going to run the full clip, and then we're going to go back through it slowly and point out some of the things that I would make sure to address within each one of the drills.
Left side, left side. Good. Right side, right side, check, check. Good. Good talk. Good. Left side, check. So make sure you're ball side. Good. Okay, now we're sliding. Now we're sliding. Right side, right side, right side, check, check. Line one. Point him, point him, point him. Good. Perfect. Now slide her in. Left side. Now slide her in. Good. So now you're what? Good. And you're? Good. And you're?
The first thing we notice in this first video is that we do a good job getting into the proper position as the ball is moved, and a great job talking. Second, we notice that we'd really like to have the player with the red arm pads shed his man and make sure that he has ball side leverage. And now, as the dodge happens, the slide and recovery is almost perfect. The slide man communicated well, the recovery was seen and pointed, and the 2 was bumped out to play the ball. But we'd really like the player who slid to spider back in as the 2 when the pass is made.
Move back, move it. Right side, right side. Approach out. Good. See approach. Now move it. Right side, right side, right side. Good. We're going to go one more pass and then we're sliding. Right side, right side. Good. Now we're sliding. Now we're sliding. Now we're sliding. Left side, left side. Good. Check, check. Good. Good. Nice look inside. Now stop. Pause. Right now.
In this next video, once again, we want to make sure that our hot man is getting ball side leverage. Right here, we'd like for the 2 to spider in faster to make sure he's helping our slide, so that if this dodge really does happen, the player on the crease is not wide open. Lastly, we'd really like to have the player who's recovering in to bump the 2 out to play the ball rather than having to run all the way through the defense. As we start to use teamwork within our defensive concepts, it's really important that we understand that we don't ever want to really run past anybody. We would rather run half the distance to the ball and have another man run half the distance, because for the most part we know that it will be a lot faster and we will recover into position quicker. A couple of the drills that I really like to pair with line bump drill are any of the 3v3s where players are sliding from the crease and using our crease rules, because then we have offensive players who are actually trying to score a goal and we get to see it on the field. We get to bring the concepts that we've learned here to the actual field. The next couple are triangle show drill, because then we're working on the adjacent concept of sliding, and then 5 on a die drill, which will bring our line bump drill crease sliding, our triangle show drill adjacent sliding into one drill, which will really force players to learn how we're going to slide adjacent and how we're going to slide crease depending on the situation. And so those drills really will help our players learn the defensive concepts that we want to use to be successful on defense. The last drill that you can definitely add is hawk drill, which is mainly an approach drill where we're learning how to approach at angles, either taking away a strong hand or C approaching to keep down the side. Utilizing the line bump drill and some of our other defensive slide and recovery concept drills within our practices has really allowed a lot of our younger, more inexperienced players to really close the gap on some of our older players, because as they really learn to understand the defensive concepts, their skills are also building at the same time, but they don't really get caught out of position as much, and so they've really closed that gap, and our younger teams have really done much better than they had in previous years because they just understand it more. And so as you guys use this drill in your practices, I really hope that you guys see the same thing. If you guys have any questions, comments, or any suggestions for me, make sure to email me at patrick@powlax.com. Check out a lot of the other defensive oriented drills on powlaxmastercoach.com. If you really like this video, like this drill, make sure to share it. Have a good one, and I'll see you guys in the next video.